If Ronaldo and Messi had a fight, watch this film to find out who could potentially win. Welcome to the Pan India project. My name is Rohan, and today we're here to review Vala, the story of a Bangle. And this film stars Lukman, Avaran, Dhyan, Sreenivasan, Raveena, Ravi, Vijayraghavran, Sheethal, Joseph, and Shanti Krishan. And this film is directed by Muhashin. Now, when I went to watch this film, where was everyone? I had the whole screen to myself. I mean, was there, well, I'm from like here in the UK, was there no hype for this film? I mean, did not many people know about it? Yeah, I was the only one. Now, if we look at the story of Vala, how I would describe it without spoiling it, basically, this film revolves around a bangle, one golden bangle, right? But the real question is, whose bangle is it actually? But for a film, this might sound like an interesting concept. It's unique, right? But I mean, it's Malayalam cinema, right? But did they deliver? No. I think when I watched this film and after thinking about it, this film did have potential. There was stuff, that worked for this film. There was two fight scenes which when I saw them, I was happy about that I got to see them. This film needed it. There was potential. I think the story, it had a unique concept, right? About a bangle, and also, there was one really good song in it. It was a wedding song, which was called Dunkam. Now, that song, it was really good. Now, maybe the song might blow up, get more popular. I mean, I was on my own here. If I had someone with me and there was just us in the cinema, maybe I would have just, danced a little bit because that song, trust me, it was really good. Just listen to it. Also, another thing with the music, I did like the rap portions of it. When we saw the fight scenes and stuff, that was all good. But in terms of if we look at the music, the rest of it was okay. It was not really for me. And I think where the film didn't work basically is they just threw in this random part, right, up for the story, which didn't work for me. I just found it random. I don't know why they added it. We will touch upon it later, but it just didn't work for me. Also, it was a bit dull throughout the first half. It does pick up slightly in the intermission and when we get to the climax, because that was one thing I really liked. The climax was genius. But I just think the way this film was done, the way they delivered the story, it wasn't the right way. I think personally, I think they could have added a bit more comedy in this film and got rid of the unnecessary parts. Then we could have been onto something here. Also, could this film have been a bit more rooted? I think yes, I would say so. I mean, even if they stuck to the four characters that, and maybe the six characters, let's say, that this Bangle revolves around, then and just focus on that, then it could have been better potentially. I mean, we do get a bit which is out of India pretty much in this film as well, but then at the same time, it does fit in with the whole story. So maybe they had to set it out exactly like this. But now let's get into the first half of the film. From this point on, there will be spoilers. So at the start of Vala, we see this animation about this bangle and it basically gets this whole backstory, how it was formed. It basically, is from generations, centuries ago, pretty much, right? This is a antique piece of jewelry. An old guy has basically created it, and it came to a point in this animation just quickly where people were possessed. Well, yeah, possessed that they wanted this bangle, right? It came to a point where people liked it, so they started fighting over it to win the bangle. Then these fights became to wars, pretty much. Different gangs came in internationally at one point, started fighting. This was all done through an animation. So it kind of shows how important or how the value is of this bangle. Is basically, well, they say in the film, it's basically invaluable, right? This antique piece which everyone's dying to get their hands on. Now, in terms of characters in this film, we're introduced to Pushetta, who's played by Dhyan Sreenivasan, and he has a wife, Sado, who's played by Raveena Ravi. Now, they basically get married, and we see that she actually has the bangle on her. Now, we see them, together in the room and stuff. Yeah, yeah, but what happens is that the bangle that she has on her hand is actually proper chunky as well. So it starts to cut him and stuff. So it cuts him and stuff, right? And in the film, we're introduced to Banu as well, who's this police officer. And he's basically, his role is to look out for this particular guy and look after him and, look after the house and stuff. So that's kind of his role. And not gonna lie, at first I thought Sado was having an affair with Pusheta, and that was Banu's girl. But you know what? That was just me in my head. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was completely wrong because we see Banu's love interest, Vishu. They get married. Then we get the wedding song, which again must listen to. And you can kind of see, because with Banu's wife, Vishu, she left her house, right? And she decided to take this grandma's box because, correct me if I'm not wrong, she thought a bangle was there, right? So, do you see the picture this film is kind of painting? But when she opens the box, there's nothing in it. Well, there's not nothing in it. Sorry, I take that back. But there's just not the bangle in it, basically, right? So, do you see where maybe they're trying to go with this film? She doesn't see the bangle, but in terms of the first half, like this won't be scene for scene, pretty much. But the main bit is, you know, Vishal sees the bangle on Saro's wrist. And basically, Saro's this uptight character, this angry character that's just always complaining, always getting angry at people. She works at this place where they do other cards and stuff, right? And Vishal goes there. And what does she ask? That where did you get this bangle from? And all the workers are kind of shocked because it's like that's not the question you're meant to ask her. And she obviously causing a fit and stuff. And then that's when Vishal gets this idea that she wants this bangle. She wants a bangle exactly like this. She's basically becomes possessed and fixed on this idea of wanting a bangle. Then obviously she tells Banu, they go shopping, but she just doesn't find anything. And then we actually see, actually, wait, before I go on to this, there's actually this bit where we're introduced to this gang, right? Because obviously Pusheta, Soto have the bracelet, and there's this gang, and Pushetta's basically trying to gonna sell it off to this gang. Now, this is a bit I felt random. Like, what was the need to incorporate this whole gang kind of gangster type Well, I just repeated myself there, but this whole type of segment. I don't think it was needed. Yes, did it add to the film? Not really. If we look at the whole context of the film, yeah, it just didn't make sense to me why this was added in the film. We get the gang anyways. They strike on a deal. Now, we also see Banu go to meet Bruschetta, and he's like, he wants to basically end up making a duplicate for his wife because, Vishal didn't like anything she saw. So it's like, okay, I'll make a duplicate. But then what happens is Vishal's friend, correct me if I'm wrong, sees that there's Arabic on the bangle, and he's like, oh, it's Arabic. So they start to maybe suss that, is it actually Soro's? Where did Soro actually get the bangle from? Then what we see, now we're getting towards the intermission, and we see them, right? This Arabic guy turns up to the house of Pusheta, and all we see is Banu and his friend turn up at the house as well. So how did they get to the house? They don't really show it. They just show a scene of them two in the house together, which it's like, okay, how did they get there? Like, it was a bit random. I mean, maybe they could have just gone with the guy. And he mentions something, tries to basically translate the Arabic on the bracelet. Now he goes to tell Pusheta that this bracelet is invaluable, basically. And all we see is as soon as Banu's trying to record the bracelet the way it looks so he can get the thing duplicated, Pusheta takes the phone off and breaks it. And it's like, if this thing is so invaluable, then there should not be a second one, basically, is what he's saying. So then we kind of see this face off between Pusheta, Banu, that because Banu's like, and they do a little like back and forth because Pusheta like hits him and whatever. Banu gets the gun and whatever because he's a police officer. But then Banu's like, okay, do you know what? I'm not gonna make the duplicate. I'm actually gonna take the real one for you. And that's where we left off in the first half. I mean, the first half it does pick up in that intermission. It's like, okay, this is what it could be. Also, with the bangle, like this could tie back into the scratches. Should they have made it a bit more, not horror comedy type bit, but like or mystical? Like maybe this bracelet protects people from danger, or maybe you know what they could have done? This bracelet could have protected women from husbands from danger. That could have been serious, but at the same time, it could have been a bit funny, right? So that's where we left for the first half. Now, if we go over in the second half, the main part of the second half of the film is really when we get to see a third lady involved in this film who claims that that's her bangle. And this second half is really about her, how she gets the bangle. And to be honest with you, when she says it's her bangle, give the story, I don't think you doubt that she's lying. you wouldn't think she's lying. Sado is one you couldn't trust, right? Through this film. And then I think you kind of believe the auntie that we see, tell the story and stuff, because we get a flashback of how she basically got the bracelet. And I don't know, this flashback, was it all necessary? Yes, I did mention, right, that it does contribute in some way, but we get these, I think they call it Onami people. So, like from Onam, right? Have this kind of grand festival feast party type vibe. There's dancing and stuff. Now, was the dancers and the song appropriate in the film? Maybe not. But anyways, we're introduced to the auntie's husband in the film, who's this chef, makes brilliant biryani and all of that. Then he gives the food to the leader of this group of men, right? Loves the biryani. And basically, his reward for the food, for the stuff, is this bangle. So that is basically where the bangle goes. And where she loses the bangle and where the bangle goes missing is the fact that in their house, when they come back home, a robbery happens. Their house gets robbed, jewelry gone, whatever. Then they set fire to the house. So he's lost it and stuff. Now, while she's telling Banu this whole flashback and stuff, actually, like talking about flashbacks, that first half and the beginning portion of the second half was all a flashback. Banu was basically narrating this story because he was complaining that he couldn't keep his wife happy and whatever. So throughout this film, its majority of it is all flashback, right? So the auntie's telling Banu, that this is what's happened. Then all we see is her husband walking, and as soon as he sees Bana, he recognizes him. So this takes us back again, flashback. So we see them on the night of this accident and stuff. There's police, there's the robbers, there's whatever, Her husband runs out of the house. I think he hits one of the robbers and starts saying, like, why are you robbing our house and whatever. And then accidentally he slaps a policeman. Now, who do you think that policeman was? Yes, you guessed it right, Bano. And in that flashback, Bano comes across this badass, well, not badass, but this mean, rowdy type policeman, starts just beating everyone up, takes the poor uncle in the bus basically, and starts beating everyone with the wooden cane in the bus. Now, was that character switch quite drastic? Because from what we've seen of Bano's character, he was this simple guy, simple policeman. His chief inspector, wasn't really keen on him. He was a bit careless. And then in this flashback, he was just ruthless. He was just beating people, getting angry and stuff. So then we see that and he recognizes him and he gets mad, obviously. And this is where Bano starts to realize his mistake, because the poor man, poor old guy, right, was beaten up, left in jail, whatever. And his life basically kind of got ruined thanks to Bano, right? And Bano starts to feel sorry, starts to take this all in. He starts to get distant from his wife as well and stuff. And then this is where the film actually gets better. Like, I was like so happy to get to this bit because, you know, Bano sees Sado. He says that bracelet's not yours. Like, I know it's not yours or whatever. Holds her by the hand. Pushetta turns up. And he sees that Bano's holding him by the hand. So obviously, Buscetta's this high up politician as well. So you could say he's well known, by the village, public, whatever. And he's like, he goes up, the gang turns up as well. And I think now how this thing happens, right? Pusheta tries to land a blow to Bano, and all we see, oh my god, I was so happy, so relieved when I saw this, because Bano spins around him and just, I think he just hits him, right? And we get some action. I'm like, yes, finally, something like I was happy about, We got the action. There's this poster that drops as well. And I think Pusheta looks at it. And what does he see? There's this karate guy in this karate pose like that. And who is it? It's Bano. So Bano knows karate, right? And we see all these kids in their karate outfit turn up as well. And we just get this fight scene, and this is what it needed. Like, just this bit of action between them two. It was basically one against a lot of people at first. I mean, the kids, what could they do in the nicest way, right? Like, and the older guys are not going to beat them up or whatever, obviously not. But it's one against all. Bano's kicking us, punching everyone, like boom, boom, boom. Then he starts to take blow after blow after blow. But there is a savior, which is the guy that he was protecting, the police protection. He came to help Barno. He came to the rescue, got the action scene, good moment, enjoyed it. Okay, where's this film going? Happy days. And throughout this, we do get to see a flashback we do see a flashback with Barno's character when he's fighting. I think maybe it's during the training thing, or no, of him fighting, but when he's like a police officer or becoming a police officer, which I think this was required for the film. This film needed this action. Then after this fight scene, it comes to a point where we see Barno's higher up inspector sit down. We see Sado. We see the older couple. We see Barno. Now the story start, talk happening about the bracelet. They're like, it's not Sado's. Obviously, it's not. So Sado's story was that her grandmother gave it, right? And basically, she couldn't. This bracelet wasn't coming off. Wasn't coming off. She couldn't take. Like they couldn't basically get the bracelet off her until the auntie. They said, "Do you know how to take it off?" She was like, "No." So obviously, if you don't know how to take your own bracelet off, is it yours? No. And that's when we reveal there is a certain way to take this bracelet off. So it makes sense why they couldn't take the bracelet off this whole time. Because the couple show them how it's done. And when he's gifted the bracelet in that flashback, the OG guy, the rich guy, shows him that you have to press these two buttons, big emerald, little emerald. That's how you take it off. And then the police inspector's like, hold up, you're not gonna get this bracelet anytime soon, basically. Then we get into this climax scene. Now, let me tell you, this climax was genius. I enjoyed it a lot because we see this fight scene and it's between Messi and Ronaldo. So the fight scenes between Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. Now Bano was Messi, Bruschetta was in the Ronaldo mask. Now, oh my god, this was hilarious. Like when I saw it, brilliant. Honestly, this bit was the best part of the film. Like to think that just to see the put the mask on. Look, I'm not really a football fan, to be honest with you. I don't follow it, whatever. But just to see this was done so good. Yeah, it was just genius. Ronaldo versus Messi. They're going back and forth. They both wanted to get the Bangle, so they go to the inspector's house. So then they start fighting. And long story short, Barno does get the bracelet, so Messi wins. Now that goes back to what I said at the beginning. Who could potentially win in the fight? Maybe it would be Messi. But just the two characters they picked to represent in terms of the mask, Messi, Ronaldo, could they have potentially put actors' faces on? Like, okay, I'm not trying to stir the pot, but maybe imagine if they did Mamuti mask, Mohanlal mask. That would have probably would that have upset? Is that why they didn't go that route? Because respect to the fans and whatever. I mean, it might have not been as funny as this bit hit because this bit was just executed well. I literally enjoyed this bit so much. So Banu does get the bracelet back and he decides to give it to the couple. Happy ending, right? Then there's this little like mid-credit scene where he's speaking to his wife again. Bano's speaking to Vishu, and then Vishu's like, she wants a bangle. Like I think the description's slightly different, than like a thinner one and stuff. But that's where the film ends. So I think for me, yes, this film had potential because of the two action scenes, especially because of the ending. I think this concept of this film, okay, it was unique. So there was stuff going for it. It for me, it was just the way they delivered it, the execution of the film didn't really hit. Also, when Lukman Aravan does action in this film, yeah, he was good in it. Like he suits that fighter type vibe, right? The action type thing. Yeah, he's good in this type role. Like hopefully in the future we actually get to see him do some badass boxing. I mean, he was in Alapura Gymkhana, right? And I think the memory I have from that film is the punch, right? That punch. But I think to see like Lukman in that action type role, maybe it's a boxing film, maybe it's just like a karate type film where he's just action, action, action. I think that'd be so cool to see. But yeah, overall this was okay. It missed the mark and it had potential.